All eyes are now on the Senate impeachment court for the trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. Joining us today is Presidential Legal Counsel and former Senate President Juan Ponce Enrile. Sir, thank you for joining us in the program.
Thank you too for honoring me with this interview.
Sir, you have presided over Senate impeachment trials in the past. Do you agree with the way the Senate impeachment court is handling the case of Vice President Duterte when in terms of the pacing, in terms of the manner they are resolving?
I don't know whether they've changed the rules. But the Constitution is very clear that you must forthwith try and decide. Of course, when you say try, you must hear the evidence and then decide either to acquit or to convict. And the conviction is not to punish. The punishment is removal and disqualification to hold public office, but not jail. I don't know whether they have changed the rules. We never had the experience or precedent like what they have done now to return the impeachment complaint to the impeaching authority, which is the House of Representatives. To me, that is not done because the Senate is a co-equal body of the House. The House cannot perform its job without the performance of the Senate, and the same way the Senate cannot do anything that is valid until the House also performs its function. There is a symbiosis between them.
So, would you say, because that's the big story right now, so would you say that that move to return the impeachment, the articles of impeachment, it's unconstitutional?
There is some misunderstanding along the way. I do not know why they had to tarry. You know, once an impeachment is filed with the Senate, we have no other choice except to hear, to try it and decide it. And it will not lapse. Once it is within the jurisdiction of the Senate, it has to discharge its duty to judge that case. It's sui generis.
So why do you think there are these kinds of moves to return the impeachment case back to the House?
Well, frankly, I think there is a semblance, this is my opinion, that Sara does not want to face an impeachment trial.
So that's your view. So
that is my opinion.
But that's from the perspective of VP Sara. How about the senator judges? Because they have a duty to perform, right?
The trouble with that is that the Congress of the Philippines will put the Constitution on a very peculiar situation. They are now locked into an impasse. Now, who can unravel that? Either you go to the Supreme Court, if there is a case, and get an interpretation. But to me, there is no need, because we have the precedents of Erap and Corona's impeachment. And the resolution of Senator Batu, with due respect to him, is unparliamentary. You cannot dismiss. You cannot move to dismiss a case. You cannot even do that in a bill coming from the House, changing the name of a street or a cat or whatever. More so, in an impeachment case. An impeachment case is not an accountability to the senators. It's not an accountability to any impeachable officer. It is not an accountability to the government. It is an accountability to the sovereign people of this country, from whom all powers of government, including the powers of the senators, emanates.
So you mentioned earlier that it is the responsibility of the senator judges to conduct a trial, but we're seeing, for instance, Senator Bato de la Rosa, he already moved to dismiss the impeachment case of Vice President Duterte. So should he inhibit himself or recuse himself from the trial?
A senator who shows his bias and partiality, I think can be censured even by his chamber if they want to censure him. But that is a no-no. And I do not know. This is the first time that a senator had the temerity to ask for the dismissal of an impeachment case. I'm not sure of the answer to that question.
So, Senator Enrile, what goes through your mind when you see these senators introducing new rules that you mentioned are not in the Constitution?
Well, it says without saying that they're not familiar with the Constitution that they should. And second, that they do not know the meaning of the role as jurors in an impeachment trial. They are not there to legislate, which is a matter of debate. They are there as juries, as judges, to listen to the evidence and to form a conclusion in their mind regarding the weight and gravity of the evidence presented against the respondent. Now, that means there is something wrong with their understanding of the role.
So the question now, Senator, is how do we get the impeachment back on track? How do we fix this?
Well, let it continue. Did the House accept the remanding of the impeachment trial, impeachment case?
They have not. They have not.
That is the dilemma. That is the dilemma. But my opinion is that it continues. Now, you see, the only institution of the government that has members that remain during an election in this country is the Senate. Under the 1935 Constitution, that was also true, but the number was reduced by the 1987 Constitution. I do not know why. The purpose of the two-thirds number under the 1935 Constitution, and it was written by one of the most respected and capable senators produced in this country, Claro M. Recto. The purpose of that is that there must be an institution, just like in the United States, that remains all the time to make a decision in case something happens to the president and the vice president or the House, so that we will not collapse or crack as country. Two-thirds is more than a quorum of the Senate. That was its purpose. I do not know why they removed that one two-thirds and made it one-half. Nothing can function without a quorum. And in case of war, if something happens like this, we are a country without a government. It's a very dangerous situation. I think we have to change the Constitution and restore the old two-thirds of the Senate that was written in the 1935 Constitution. You know what is happening in the Senate? I'm afraid that with this event, the people might be prepared to really revamp the structure of the government and abolish the Senate. Because it has become, it has been disturbed very much by what happened.
Some have said, including constitution framers, that some senator judges are already acting like lawyers for the vice president. So do you share that opinion?
That is not to be, because the role of impartiality is a hallmark of the role of every senator in an impeachment trial. That is why impeachment of an impeachable officer, and there are only very few of them, is separated from Article 6 of the Constitution. It was treated in Article 9 because that is the article that governs the accountability of high government official wielding high powers of government. Who are the impeachable officers? The President, the Vice President, members of the Supreme Court, members of Constitutional Commission, including the Ombudsman. Those are the only impeachable positions. The President cannot do anything because he is also an impeachable officer. He has a conflict of interest if he will intervene. And apart from the separation of powers, the President is locked out from the fray.
So, Senator, you mentioned the value of impartiality in impeachment trials, right? So, how do we go beyond partisan politics and make it about accountability? Because it should be about accountability.
The only two ways that I can see would be for the Supreme Court to make an interpretation which will become a part of our jurisprudence and in turn becomes a part of the law of the land, to define and clarify that portion of the Constitution. The second one is amend the Constitution. There's no other way. It's very, some people may think that this is a very light problem for the country. No, sir. We are in a very dangerous situation right now. Because if there is an impasse, the Senate cannot command the House to do anything. They are co-equal. Neither can the House command the Senate to do anything. The House did its function. They conducted hearing. They found something wrong. You may not agree with them, but they found that and they submitted to the Senate for resolution. The Senate is supposed to do its job with reasonable speed. What the Constitution says, forthwith. Anybody can understand that English. And they did not do it. They tarried and then dilly-dallied, and then worse, they turned it back to the House and commanded the House, which is improper and parliamentary, to do something that they have done. You must give a presumption of regularity to the other House. You cannot demand or command the other house, which is your co-equal.
With all the moves that we are seeing from the senator judges, do you think it's just because there are no numbers to convict the Vice President?
I do not know whether there are no numbers to convict or acquit the Vice President. But in an impeachment trial, I gave you myself as an example. I was going to vote for Corona, but I changed my mind when I heard the evidence coming from his own mouth. How do you know that those people who will hear the evidence will not change their mind? Because if they're going to act in a way where the public feels that they're not performing their jobs, they're subject to punishment through election. If they're not going to run again, maybe. But they're politicians. They cater to the desires and lack of trust of the voting population.
Kumbaga, the people will remember.
I'm sure some people will get hurt in what happened.
I want to go back to the impeachment trial of former President Estrada. Do you see any similarities between the trial of former President Estrada and the trial of Vice President Duterte, given that they are both from the executive branch?
In the case of the first two impeachment that happened, I don't think anyone can say that we delayed. As I told you, the process that we followed was when the impeachment is received by the Secretary General of the Senate, that official sends it to the Committee on Rules. The Committee on Rules immediately the following session day, he puts it in the order of business for first reading, and the plenary will send it to the proper committee for processing immediately. And we did that in the case of ERAP. The head of the committee that handled it was Renato Cayetano. And we prepared the rules of impeachment, how the senator judges will comport themselves, how time is allotted to each to ask clarificatory questions, and that there must be no debate. You cannot debate with the witness, you cannot debate with each other.
Given everything we talked about, if you will have a chance to have a conversation with the sitting senator judges, what would you tell them?
Well, with due respect to them, my first advice is to be reticent, keep quiet, and then go to the session hall during the trial, sit down and listen to the proceeding, listen to the presentation of evidence. Let the defense lawyer and the prosecution tangle each other, but never interfere unless you want to ask a clarificatory question to understand the meaning of the evidence that is being presented or the word uttered by the witness.
How about the Filipino people? What would be their role in this impeachment trial?
I'm sure the Filipino people who have a little understanding of these things will wonder why things are happening this way. I'm sorry to say this, but even I was a little bit taken by the events that transpired. It was very evident that there is a desire to prevent the trial to go through. For what?
So just to close this interview, to finish this interview, I want to shift our perspective from the senator judges to the Filipinos. How do we make Filipinos understand that the issue of impeachment is as important as the prices of goods, the food at the table?
Kailangan maintindihan ng ating bayan na kung itong proseso ng impeachment na nangyayari ngayon ay masusunod, wala nang sumasasangga sa korupsyon sa buong bansa. Ibigay na lang natin yung pera na binabayaran ng mga nagbabayad ng buwis sa gobyerno at bahala ni sila. Hindi na mapunta sa mga tao. Libre na eh. Wala na magbabawal sa kanila. Wala na silang barriers o yung sasangga sa nakawan ng kaban ng bayan. Nalulungkot ako dahil karamihan nitong mga nasa Senado ngayon, marami sa kanila mga kaibigan ko. Pero yung mga bago na dapat mag-aral naman sila sana at malaman nila kung ano talaga ang ibig sabihin nitong trabaho na pumasok sa kanila na dapat nilang sundin.
Okay, thank you for joining us for the interview, Senator Enrile.
Salamat sa'yo. Salamat.
I'm Neil Mercado, and for more stories, please visit INQUIRER.net.